guys, welcome back to our species breakdown series. In today's video, we're talking all about the African penguin. We're going to be going over just looking at them, taking a look at their model and their colorations in the game, looking over their zoopedia, talking about their enrichment, and then last but certainly not least, talking a little bit about habitat design for these guys to give you a little bit of inspiration if you want to put them in your zoo. So as you can see, I have a very quick little habitat built here. We're actually in Tolly Zoo in a sandbox mode because that is where I had the color morph of this penguin already so that I could showcase it for you guys. So very quickly, actually, because they are next to each other, there are only two color morphs of the African penguin. There is black and white and brown and white. So these are the only two different colors that you're going to be able to find in the game. These guys are actually perfectly situated next to each other for you to compare and contrast, but I'll put a picture up right now just so that you can see one is brown and white and one is black and white. Very simple to tell them apart, gives a good variety to your habitat. If you are lucky enough to find the brown and white one, because it is rather difficult to find. Again, I found this brown and white one in franchise mode. Tolly Zoo is our franchise zoo that we stopped a while ago, but I had one, so I was able to showcase it for you guys. I was not able to find one in sandbox mode. So yeah, these guys, very, very cute. Let me let them swim around a little bit more. We also do have a baby in here somewhere. It's going to be up on land somewhere because they have fuzzy down feathers all over and are unable to go in the water. Aha, here you are, little guy over here taking a nap in the corner. So as you can see, these guys are kind of covered in more of a fuzzy down rather than their slick feathers like their parents. He's sitting on his butt, his little feet are up in the air. How cute. Anyway, these guys are not waterproof, so they will be hanging out on the ground, on land. They will not be swimming until they lose all their down and basically mature is what that means in the game. So once they are considered an adult, they will swim and go in the water, but babies will stick around on land. But yeah, that is basically it for the colorations and just the models in general. I think they look fantastic. I love these guys, so I'm very excited to talk more about them. Let's go ahead and go over their zoopedia. So if you bring up their zoopedia, the front page is obviously going to have a lot of information about them, just like any other animal. They are considered endangered. If we go to their natural habitat, obviously as their name implies, they are the African penguin, so they are from the southernmost edge of the African continent. They do like the aquatic and the desert biomes, and they really don't need much space at all. So these guys are going to be a nice little filler animal for the nooks and crannies of your zoo. They can have quite a lot of them in there. As you can see, we go up. They don't actually need too much more space per each one that you add. They do need both water though and deep water. So they will need somewhere to dive and swim around. So you want to make sure that you make your pools deep enough. I think it's 4 meters or below is going to be considered deep water. They really don't need tall fences or strong fences either, so that's going to make it easy to build for them as well. And if you go to their species data tab, you can see, let me get rid of this. The game still thinks that I'm actually playing it, and I am not. I am actually just trying to look at the penguins. Thank you very much. If we go to their species data tab, they can have up to 500 individuals. So I actually attempted to overcrowd a population just to see if I could get a fighting animation, and I was unsuccessful. I put like 20 something of them in a teeny tiny little circular habitat and still was unable to get a fighting animation out of them, even though they were very unhappy with the space they were given. They're no dominance. They just love each other. So they don't necessarily have like a true fighting animation. We'll go over all of that later as well. They are monogamous in their mating system, so they are going to pick one mate and stick with it. Guests can enter their habitat, and then this is a little bit more information about them and their life cycle and all that kind of stuff. If we go to their interspecies enrichment tab, you can see that they have none. So these guys are not really going to be an animal that you're going to build combined habitats for. They're really just going to be on their own. Now, if we go back to our little exhibit and go just to the right, we have all their enrichment laid out here. So we are starting with some ice blocks, which one has unfortunately melted. So let me actually just replace that. Beautiful. So the little cylinder ice, we have the ice filled with fish that's very stinky because it's been sitting out here out of a habitat. We have the little platform. This one's actually meant to go in the water, and they kind of swim up through this center hole and stand on top of this platform in the water. We have the little bubble machine, a rubber ducky, a little disco ball, one of my favorites. I did capture that animation, so we'll look at that in just a minute. We have a mirror stand stick thing, which honestly they just walk up and stare at. They really don't do anything with it. We have a little puzzle feeder. We have the submarine, a sprinkler, and then both underwater fish feeders. These are exactly the same, just different sizes. One is obviously big and one is flat. This submarine on land looks a little silly, but I do have one placed in this habitat, so you can see this is what it would look like if you placed it in the water. The anchor kind of sits down and then the submarine floats up to the top. And I placed it just so that the top of it was kind of sticking out of the water. I actually haven't been able to see them interact with this at all. Maybe I put it in too shallow of water. I'm not sure. So if you've seen them actually do anything with this, let me know. I'm thinking they might just kind of bump into it and that's how they use it. But I'm not sure. It does say that it's accessible where it's at. I haven't been able to see them use it, so let me know if you have. But yeah, that is it for their enrichment. Not too much stuff, but let's go ahead and take a look at some of their animations. So looking at some of their single animations first, they obviously can sit down, take a little nap standing up or sitting down, sitting upright basically. They'll also do like a little ambient animation where they kind of just look around the habitat. I thought this one was quite cool. It's very, very subtle, but it's those little things that kind of just make them feel a little more alive. You know, they don't just stand stationary still like statues when they're doing nothing. They kind of look around their habitat, and then they do this cute little stretch where they kind of bring their neck up, stand real tall, look up at the sky. Thought that one was quite cute. And then they also have, on kind of the same lines of stretching, a grooming habitat. So they're going to go through and kind of preen their feathers with their beak, and then they do a little shake and a little flipper flap or a wing flap, whatever you want to call them. I thought that one was pretty cute. And then the babies actually do the exact same thing. So they kind of use their beak to kind of pick at their little down feathers. This happens to be the brown mutation, which is why this baby looks so light colored comparative to the other babies. But I think it's absolutely adorable. They also do a little bit of like the stretching kind of thing as well. You can see there he's kind of picking his head up, stretching out a little bit more. And then they'll also do some grooming while they're sitting. Now, the animation on this one's not the best. Their necks in reality don't necessarily wiggle that way, but you guys get the point. I couldn't really find one that was a bit smoother than that, but they do have an animation where they groom while they're sitting. They also sit down like little potatoes. That's exactly what they remind me of, laying this way. They just kind of lay on their bellies and look around. I think it's absolutely adorable. And again, they do look like little potatoes. They do eat absolutely ginormous fish. These are way too large for African penguins, but you know, it's all right. It's the same fish that all the other animals eat, but they just kind of walk up to the feeder, bend over, eat it with their beak, stuff like that. Very, very simple. They run like little weirdos. I love this animation because they look so funny. Their little wings kind of go out to the side, and they're actually pretty quick when they move around. But the next animation is the most important, and they poop. Basically, I thought this one was funny because they kind of lean forward and like projectile shoot their poop into the habitat. So there you go, penguins pooping. Moving on to something a little bit less gross is their swimming. This is swimming deep diving underwater. So they are one of the animals that will deep dive and actually do, as we mentioned earlier in the video, require deep water in order to swim in. And I think this animation is very well done. You can see the little bubbles coming off of them. The air that's trapped under their feathers that helps keep them warm is kind of sneaking out there. And the little trail they leave behind them is very, very cute. They'll also swim across the surface. They look like little buoys with little flippers, but they just kind of swim with their head up out of the water, and they've got the same kind of little splashing animations on the surface of the water that some other animals have. And then I did catch a social animation. This one I'm calling fighting. They kind of bicker back and forth. They slap themselves or slap each other with their flippers or their wings. And then they kind of go at each other with their beaks. And then the one kind of runs away and the other one kind of slaps after it as it runs away. Pretty accurate. They do kind of fight each other with their beaks and their wings like this. And despite how cute they are, they do actually hit rather hard. So those flippers are a lot denser than you think that they would be. But then a little bit more of a sweeter animation. This is going to be their mating animation. So they walk up to each other, they do a little call, they put their beaks in the air right here. How cute! And then they're going to kind of nuzzle with one another. This is one of the sweeter mating animations I think that I've watched. I like when they're a little bit more detailed or a little bit longer, more complex, I guess. They do clip with one another a little bit, but very sweet. So they walk up and like I said, call to each other and then they nuzzle. And now I only caught 2 enrichment animations because really none of them were that interesting. Only this one and kind of the disco ball one was interesting. So this is obviously the floating platform in the water, where they swim up, they come through that center hole, they kind of stand here for a minute, and then he's eventually going to kind of walk off the side. They always go in a linear direction, so whatever side they start on, they're going to end on the opposite side. You can see this next one here is on just the other side, 90 degrees from the first animation, and he's going to come up straight and then go straight off. But they kind of get up on this platform, wiggle, shake a little bit, and then walk right off and dive back into the water. It's a simple animation, but I like it because it's, you know, it's in the water. It's a bit different from a lot of the other animals. Very, very cute. And then by far my favorite one is going to be the next one, this disco ball. They kind of investigate it and then he gets a little scared of it, so he backs up and he flaps his little wings. Absolutely adorable. So now let's talk a little bit about habitat design. So this is actually an African penguin habitat that I designed a while ago, right when the Africa Pack came out. And I think it represents really well some of the necessities that you need for penguin habitats. The first thing you might notice is lots and lots of rocks as well as gravel. So this is actually the gravel pathing that I've used to simulate like what would be like river rock pebbles used in the habitat. And the reason for so much gravel, so much rock is that these guys, they walk on water. No, really, they poop a lot. They poop a lot. They're very messy, and anything that you can hose down is going to be your favorite thing to use for substrate for these guys. So that brings me to the fact that this habitat also has 1, 2 over there, and then 3 hose spigots, one right over there. And that way keepers can drag in the hose to each individual of these. They can get absolutely anywhere they need to in order to clean this all out. The water pond would need to have a pretty hefty filtration system, unless you're going to like drop it and refill it with new water every once in a while. If it's going to be like a self-sustaining pool, it would need a very heavy duty water filtration system to make sure that that all stays nice and clean for them. Other than that, in here we just have some foliage just that needs to be penguin safe. I don't know, this specific plant is only in there because it looks good, but making sure that it's penguin safe. We need some shade for them, a little protection from particularly like outside fly-ins are a problem. If you're going to be feeding these guys, other waterfowl or other birds that are around might swoop in to try to take the fish that you are feeding these guys. So adding some overhead kind of shade structures and things like that kind of protect from that as well. We'll take a look at some habitat reference pictures, one of which does have a completely enclosed kind of aviary style build to it. That definitely works as well, and then some just little shelter for them to get out of wind, rain, whatever other elements that might come their way in the environment that you are keeping them in. This particular habitat does not have a double fence or double barrier system, specifically because the water and the ground level is low enough so people cannot reach down to try to touch the penguins. However, with this specific habitat, you would need to be aware of people dropping things in the habitat. Or, unfortunately, potentially throwing things, like maybe trying to toss coins into the water, or dropping a hat, or a water, or a toy from a child. So that would be something you would have to worry about with this habitat specifically. Penguins do have a tendency to try to eat everything, so being vigilant in a habitat like this would be really, really important, and make sure you take anything out that got dropped as soon as it was dropped. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the reference pictures that I found. And again, this first one, you're gonna notice just lots of rocks and lots of water. They obviously need lots of room to swim around. And then everything else, this one looks like it has sand in it, but needs to be easy to clean, easy to keep sanitary for these guys because they are messy, very, very messy. Looking at the second picture here, this is the one that's kind of more like aviary styled. You can see that there is a complete barrier as well as a roof around this one. So this one would be more protected from things like fly-ins, animals trying to steal their food, stuff like that. Again, they have a big pool in the center and lots of rocks. This one's a little bit more planted, which is always my preference. Gives the animals something to kind of explore a little bit different in their environment. I'm all about following the natural history of the animal, so wherever the environment they came from, trying to match that as best as possible is always good. This third picture is going to be kind of a mixture of the two. It's got some more plants, but you can see that gravel in the back there. One thing you might notice with this one is that there's not really like a shift situation for these penguins. There's not like penguin-specific doors. You can just see the one keeper door in the back, and that's because these guys can be worked with free contact, meaning that you don't have to have an area to put the animals in so that the keeper can service the habitat. The keeper can just walk right in, clean the habitat. They can grab a penguin if they need to take it away for medical or any other reasons. But yeah, other than that, the keeper can just walk around in the habitat with the animals. This picture is also a really good representation of those fly-ins that I was talking about, or these could potentially be some birds that are meant to be, but you can see on that left-hand side, there's some other species of birds that are kind of sitting there in the habitat, either obviously part of the zoo exhibit as well and are sharing the habitat, or are just some freeloaders. My guess is that they are actually part of the habitat. But this one has a nice, huge swimming pool area that's nice and clean. It looks great. Obviously way more rocks and the gravel, like I already mentioned. And then they do have a bit of a shade tarp, shade cloth above as well to offer a little bit of shelter and shade for the penguins. The very last picture that we have is really my favorite, and I actually might use this as a reference picture in the future for a habitat. They've got a little island, nice huge pool pond for them to swim in, and then a shade structure in the back. This one has lots and lots of concrete in the back. It's really important to keep the substrate for penguins really clean and also varied. They are prone to getting what's called bumblefoot, which is like a skin infection in their foot or a bacterial infection in their foot. It happens because they get little sores on their feet, and then bacteria can enter, and then it festers, it gets infected, and it gets kind of swollen, and they get like a lump on the bottom of their foot, which is why it's referred to as bumblefoot. So it's really important to keep it clean, but also varied, so that you don't have them standing on the exact same substrate all the time, and they don't get those kind of sores on their feet. The fencing around all of these habitats can be very simple. Penguins are actually relatively acrobatic, so you just want to make sure that it's not easily climbable, but anything like this graded fence is going to be perfect for keeping them in. And that's it. That's all of the reference pictures that I have for you and all the information about penguins that I have for you. If you have any other information or have any questions, go ahead and leave those down in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you, and I hope that this really helped for penguin inspiration. These guys obviously are not polar penguins, so they're not going to have to be kept inside in temperature and light regulated habitats. They'll be able to live outside like this habitat and all the reference pictures that I showed you, but I'll be excited to get to the king penguin in our species breakdown video because they will be completely opposite. They will be ones that have to be indoors because they are a polar species of penguin, and they will be much too hot in this outside enclosure. They will need to be kept cold in an inside polar exhibit. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys on penguins. If you made it this far, if you enjoyed the video, and if it was at all helpful, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. We are going through all the species of Planet Zoo in alphabetical order, so hopefully I will be able to hit them all, and you guys are enjoying the series. You can follow all of my social media accounts. All the links are down in the description below. And until next time, I will talk at you guys in the next video. Bye!